America loves a good election. The excitement, the debates, the rallies, and the anticipation of who will lead the country next. It's a spectacle that captures the attention of millions. But the way we pick our president? Well, that's a whole other story. It's not as straightforward as just counting votes. Many voters find the process perplexing. Why isn't the candidate with the most votes always the winner? See, the Founding Fathers didn't quite trust us with a direct vote. They had their reasons, rooted in the context of their time. They worried about mob rule, the idea that a majority could easily sway decisions without considering the minority's needs. They also wanted to make sure smaller states had a say. In a new and fragile union, it was crucial to balance the interests of both large and small states. Their solution? The Electoral College, a system designed to balance these concerns. It's been confusing Americans ever since. The complexity of the system often leaves voters scratching their heads. Think of it like a weird game show. The rules aren't always clear, and the outcome can be surprising. The popular vote is like the studio audience cheering. It's loud, it's visible, and it shows the people's preference. It matters, but it doesn't decide the winner. The final decision lies elsewhere. That's up to the Electoral College, our panel of 538 judges. These electors cast the decisive votes. Each state gets electors based on its representation in Congress. This means states with larger populations have more electors, but even the smallest states have a minimum of 3. The Electoral College was a compromise. It was a middle ground between a direct popular vote and a vote by Congress. It aimed to balance the power of the people with the influence of individual states. This balance was seen as essential for the new nation. It also reflected the political realities of the time. The Founding Fathers had to navigate a complex landscape of regional interests and political factions. Slavery, for example, played a role in how representation was calculated. The infamous 3/5 compromise counted enslaved people as 3/5 of a person for representation and tax purposes, affecting the number of electors each state received. Today, the Electoral College remains a topic of debate. Some argue it's an outdated system that doesn't reflect the democratic ideals of one person, one vote. Others believe it protects the interests of smaller states and prevents a few populous areas from dominating national politics. Regardless of where you stand, the Electoral College is a fundamental part of how America elects its leaders. It's a system born out of compromise and continues to shape the nation's political landscape. So, next time you cast your vote, remember the intricate dance of democracy that goes on behind the scenes. It's a reminder of the complex history and ongoing evolution of the American electoral process. To win the presidency, a candidate needs a majority of electoral votes. That magic number is 270. This system, known as the Electoral College, is a unique feature of American democracy, designed by the Founding Fathers as a compromise between election of the president by Congress and election by popular vote. Each state's electoral count is equal to its total number of senators, always 2, plus its number of representatives in the House, based on population. This means that states with larger populations have more electoral votes, reflecting their greater number of representatives. California, the most populous state, has a whopping 55 electoral votes. This makes it a significant player in presidential elections, often drawing considerable attention from candidates. Wyoming, on the other hand, has just 3. Despite its small size, Wyoming's electoral votes are proportionally more influential per capita than those of larger states. This system gives less populous states a slightly bigger voice in presidential elections. It ensures that candidates must pay attention to the needs and interests of smaller states, not just the most populous ones. This setup can lead to a candidate winning the popular vote but losing the election. This occurs because the Electoral College prioritizes state-by-state victories over the total national vote count. It's happened 5 times in US history, most recently in 2016. In these instances, the candidate who secured the majority of individual votes across the country did not win the presidency due to the distribution of electoral votes. This discrepancy fuels ongoing debates about the Electoral College's fairness and whether it should be reformed. Critics argue that it undermines the principle of one person, one vote, while supporters claim it protects the interests of smaller states and maintains a balance of power. The Electoral College was established by the Constitution in 1787, reflecting the complex negotiations and compromises of the time. It was intended to balance the influence of populous and less populous states, ensuring a federalist approach to electing the president. As the nation continues to evolve, so too does the conversation around the Electoral College. Whether it remains or is reformed, it remains a cornerstone of the American electoral system, shaping the way presidents are elected and reflecting the diverse and dynamic nature of the United States. So, who are these mysterious electors? They're usually party loyalists nominated by their state parties. Think of them as political superfans. After the popular vote in each state, the winning party's electors typically cast their votes for their party's nominee. It seems straightforward, but there are a few wrinkles. Some states have winner-take-all rules, meaning the candidate who wins the popular vote in that state gets all of its electoral votes. But Maine and Nebraska do things a little differently. They can split their electoral votes, awarding some to one candidate and some to another. Section 4. Winner takes all. Mostly. The winner-take-all system is a big deal. It's the method used by most states in the US presidential elections, where the candidate who wins the majority of the popular vote in a state takes all of that state's electoral votes. This system means candidates can rack up a lot of electoral votes by winning big in certain states. For example, if a candidate wins California, they get all 55 of its electoral votes, which can be a huge boost. Think Florida, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, those swing states everyone's always talking about. These states are often the battlegrounds where candidates focus their campaigns because winning them can make or break their chances. Maine and Nebraska, however, offer a glimpse of an alternative. Unlike the winner-take-all approach, they allocate their electoral votes differently. They allocate electoral votes based on congressional districts. This means that instead of all electoral votes going to the statewide winner, they can be split among candidates based on who wins in each district. This means a candidate could win some electoral votes in a state, even if they don't win the statewide popular vote. For instance, a candidate might win the popular vote in a few districts, but not the entire state, still earning some electoral votes. This system is more proportional, reflecting the diversity of political views within a state. It allows for a more nuanced representation of the electorate's preferences, rather than a winner-take-all sweep. But it's also more complex and arguably less decisive. The winner-take-all system provides a clear, straightforward result, while the district-based approach can lead to more fragmented outcomes, requiring candidates to strategize differently and appeal to a broader range of voters. Ultimately, the debate between winner-take-all and proportional allocation of electoral votes continues. Each system has its pros and cons, and the choice between them reflects deeper questions about how we value simplicity versus representation in our democratic processes. As we move forward, it's important to consider how these systems impact not just the outcome of elections, but the way candidates campaign and the voices that are heard in our democracy. Whether we stick with winner-take-all or explore alternatives, the goal remains the same: to ensure that every vote counts and that our electoral process reflects the will of the people. Section 5. Faithless electors. When the system goes rogue. Remember those electors, the supposed party loyalists? Well, sometimes they go rogue. These are the infamous faithless electors, electors who vote for someone other than their pledged candidate. It's rare, but it happens. Faithless electors can throw a wrench into the works, but they've never actually changed the outcome of a presidential election. Still, their existence highlights the potential for chaos embedded within the Electoral College system. Section 6. Ties. Anyone? The House decides. What happens if no candidate gets the magic 270 electoral votes? Buckle up, because things get really interesting. The election goes to the House of Representatives. Each state delegation gets one vote to decide the president. This scenario, while unlikely, underscores the power dynamics inherent in the Electoral College. A candidate who lost the popular vote could potentially win the presidency through this contingent election process.